Is up, everyone? It is time for the Awesemo MMA DFS strategy show right here on Awesemo.com. Of course, that's the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. I am Jason Floyd. Pete, happy Thursday. We're back to Thursdays now that the Thursday night football schedule is over, and it is finally fight week.
I can actually honestly say that I missed you, and I missed our audience. I missed you guys. It's been a while, and you know, it was a nice little break from the fights, but now we're back to it, and we're going to be hammering some fights, tons of UFC action. I'm excited for this card. We have a ton of big cards and content coming forward. So, you know, happy to be here, guys, and, you know, interested to see where some of our viewers, you know, think on some of these fights.
Hold on. Did you say you missed me?
I'm not going to repeat it, Jason. So, I mean, maybe you might have heard
that. Yeah, it's, but man, we have got a ton to get into. Before we even get into the new DraftKings scoring, which I think for a lot of people was probably a blessing for 2021 with, you know, adding total strikes and some other things there. Pete, anyone who goes over to Awesemo.com, goes to the MMA section, there's a nice little surprise there.
Yes, sir. I have a ton of content coming this way and dropping some more tomorrow, and I can kind of explain what you can expect going on to Awesemo. So, of course, we have our heat sheet over there, which is, you know, the nice spreadsheet that everybody enjoys, and it's very helpful. We do have my fight analysis that you're seeing right now on the screen, where I kind of go through each fight and give you my prediction and breakdown in a concise way. Some other tools that we have is Takedown City, Jason. I had to run with something with that term. And on that tool, you'll see a chart mixed with a graph for both offensive takedowns and times that they have been taken down as well. So if you're looking to dive deep into the fights, I strongly recommend heading over to Awesemo. I'll have a ton of content there. I'll be pumping it out on my social media, on Twitter at Pete the Heat MMA. It's under the MMA articles tab. And, you know, I'll have post weigh-in analysis and some heaters, like some nice betting picks that I'm getting behind. So, I mean, if you like the deep thought process behind it, you have a nice spot to go to on Awesemo.com right now.
Of course, yeah, you got to check that over there at Awesemo.com. Of course, be sure to hit that thumbs up button right here on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell. Of course, you know, we got shows all day long for you to get you ready, not just for this week's UFC card, but the NFL playoffs this weekend. Of course, the daily NBA games. NHL is back. We got a great promo going on over at the site for our NHL coverage. So ton of stuff going on over here at Awesemo.com. But Pete, you know, I mentioned about the big news of the past couple weeks is that DraftKings is actually changed their scoring system. This is something that, you know, we have, you know, talked about over the last 9 months or so of kind of, especially, you know, based on how Fight Metrics scored the fight in relative to significant strikes versus total strikes. And DraftKings really has fixed that here. We now get 0.2 points for total strikes, 0.2 for significant strikes. Of course, significant strikes was a half a point. Now you get control time points, 0.03 points per second of control time. There is no more advancing points at all, which was +3. Also, there's a quick win bonus. If you get a first round victory in under 60 seconds, that's 25 points. And people can see right now on the screen a tweet you had a little while ago comparing if this new DraftKings scoring system was in December, how we would have seen some fights scored.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a new type of scoring. It's going to make some quite unique scores, to be honest. So like, I think duplicates will, they will definitely decrease because you're going to have so many unique scores. It's interesting because, you're not having to rely on significant strikes so much, or you can get away with having somebody who has a high total of strikes, which is nice. It's just, the control time of the grappling definitely changes things. The control time, you take away advances, but if somebody's very suffocating on the mat, then they can pose some problems and definitely break the slate. Like I can only imagine like a Khabib, or a Khamzat Chimaev, how their scores would be, influenced in a situation like this. Now, we are rewarded with a nice quick win bonus. You mentioned 25 points. So I call it the Francis Ngannou bonus. So you need guys to go out there and get you a finish in under a minute. I think that the scoring still needs some changes, but, we'll take it in stride. They're listening to our advice and everything. And I'm excited to see how this card plays out.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, I do think it's even more advantaged grapplers on DraftKings. I mean, it's something we have talked about for a long time, but, you think about when you have a fighter who's going up against someone that you believe cannot stop a takedown. We joked about John Phillips can't stop a takedown. How many points someone would have scored against John Phillips in the scoring system? But I think it's also, as you are developing your rosters for Saturday, it's something you have to think about is there someone on this card that you believe is going to take the fight to the ground? Their opponent will not be able to get up, and you might be able to rack up some points just on control time.
Yeah, I mean, there's no John Phillips on the card. I don't really see somebody that's going to go out there and just get completely, just destroyed on the mat. There are some spots where the grappling could come into play. I'm excited to get into it with you. But yeah, I'm looking forward to other cards when we have a John Phillips on the card and be like, okay, smash spot.
Yeah, but we got a ton of fights to break down here, so let's get right into it. Main event, Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar. Looking at the DK lines on this one, Max Holloway, 8,900. Calvin Kattar, he's 7,300. And then over on FanDuel, $21 for Max Holloway, $18 for Calvin Kattar. And when I peeked at the DraftKings lines for this one, I was actually surprised about how high Max Holloway was in this one. We were talking before the lines came out for this, and I was thinking 85, 86. So with that 8,900, that stuck out to me. This is a fight, particularly in cash. I know we're not big stackers. This is a cash stack fight to me.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the stacking, because I wonder if stacking's viable now with the new set of scoring. I mean, I do think that in a matchup like this, a 5-round fight that you expect to stay on the feet where they just trade blows, this would be the spot, right? This would be the spot to test out this new scoring system. 8,900 for Holloway, 7,300 for Kattar. The disrespect to Kattar is pretty wide, but they are giving a ton of respect to Max Holloway. He's one of the best 145 pounders, if not the best 145 pounder ever. So, this is a very, very tough fight. We can say that Max Holloway won his previous fight, I would say. I thought that's what happened. It's a unique fight because Max Holloway, there was a point in time when we were all in the MMA industry worried about his health and safety, because he has taken so many shots over the course of past couple of years, and how much damage that he has taken. This is not a fight where he needs to go out there and stay in a phone booth with Calvin Kattar, because if he does that, I'm afraid that Calvin Kattar is going to get the better of him in the boxing exchanges. Now, you have Max Holloway, who is a volume type of fighter. You don't want, to get, behind on the scorecards. So Kattar really needs to jump on Max Holloway, push him backwards, and, hit him with some clean counters, and maybe start to utilize something else.
Yeah, first off, mentioning to the point that you mentioned there with Max Holloway. So let's offensively for Max Holloway. So he has been in a title fight since 2017. Landed 104 strikes against Jose Aldo in their first meeting, 174 strikes in their second meeting. Then against Brian Ortega, he landed 290 strikes, 181 against Dustin Poirier, 129 against Frankie Edgar, 134 in the first meeting against Volkanovski, 102 in the second meeting with Volkanovski. However, let's look at defensively. Against Alexander Volkanovski, landed 137 in the rematch, 157 in their first fight. Frankie Edgar landed 96. Dustin Poirier landed 178. Brian Ortega, I forgot about this number. He landed 110 strikes because when I think of that fight, I think of pure domination by Max Holloway. So he has taken a lot of strikes. But we got Tyler producing here on the show, and he's going to let you hear an interview that I had with Calvin Kattar's coach, Tyson Chartier, and it's about a 3-minute clip. You're going to hear here in a momentarily. And one of the things that really stuck out to me is if you really listen closely, does Tyson Chartier maybe note that Calvin could go for takedowns here? Sports consumer. This is a fight that everyone loves because they know the style that Calvin brings, they know the style that Max brings. As you've prepared for Max, is there something that stuck out to you that maybe you had not realized in the past of watching him fight?
Yeah, no, I did pick up on a few things that I see that are big holes in his games that he's had even in his last fight that he had in his early UFC fights. Everybody's got holes, everybody's got tendencies, nobody's perfect. And now it's our job to put ourselves in the spot in the sandbox where we can exploit those holes. And, we got some things we're working on. And I think, people are going to be pretty surprised in this fight. If all goes to plan, people are going to realize, Calvin isn't just a boxer. And I think they're going to see that, he is the better fighter overall.
I mean, when I think of Max Holloway, one of the things I think of is this is a guy that's going to be there from minute 1 to minute 24. There's never this. I mean, and because I go back and when I look at the rematch that he had in his last fight, I thought he won the fight personally. I don't know how the way you felt, but I thought he won the fight, and I thought he did make changes from the first fight. Where you saw how he does adapt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, he's an extremely high fight IQ. He's got a good team around him. He makes good decisions in fights overall. But nobody's perfect, just like Calvin's not perfect. Yeah. Like it's a chess match at this point. So we're going to see who can move their pieces into the right place to kill that queen and get the king. So, that's what we're doing now. We're just trying to, play with that chessboard, mix things up and make sure that we're always on the offense. And, I really think that Calvin matches up well with Max. I think a lot of people could argue, well, Max has the experience. Okay, well, they basically got the same number of fights. Calvin, Max gets the big fight experience. So yeah, sure. Okay. So this will be our third main event in a year. So, we're not going to get overwhelmed because we're fighting Max Holloway. I mean, Calvin's mentally strong. It's not a big deal. We've been to Fight Island. We've never lost there. He's lost there. Then they could say that he has the volume, he brings a lot of volume. It's like, all right, well, he also gets hurt against power punchers. And, you look at how he did against Dustin Poirier. And I could argue that we're just as much of a power puncher as Dustin is. And, I think we have a similar skill set to Dustin. We probably have better wrestling. So I think, we have the skills that match up well. It's just going to be a matter of not going out there, not pulling the trigger. If Calvin goes out there and throws combos, I think it's going to be a long night for Max Holloway. If Calvin goes out there and just sits back too much, that's where Max can gain momentum and play his game and dictate the pace and never get tired. But, you stand in the middle of the cage and push Max backwards, he tends to struggle with that. And, so does everybody else, though. So
a lot of interesting things that Tyson said there. I remember when I did that interview and we were recording it, my first initial thought was, okay, Calvin's got those combos. That was the first thing that caught me. But then when I watched it a second and third time, I go, hold on, did he just tell me Calvin might be going for some takedowns?
Yeah, I think it's one of two things. And one of our viewers is in the chat right now, Tajik Bey, talking about, he's thinking it's leg kicks. I think leg kicks could definitely be a new component and a part of the game plan that was used pretty effectively against Max Holloway. But I will tell you that Calvin Kattar does have very good wrestling and good jiu-jitsu. I've sparred Calvin Kattar. He's very, very talented, all areas of his game. So I think either one, I would say let's implement them both. Let's give ourselves the best shot in the title fight. this is essentially, in my eyes, a title fight. But this is the closest way you can get to Volkanovski.
Yeah, I know that they're going to do Volkanovski versus Ortega, I believe in February. So for some reason, maybe Ortega doesn't make it there. One of these guys could easily step in there. I mean, look, on DraftKings, I think Calvin is a great punt play. And even if he's unable to get a victory, I think this fight's going 25 minutes. Overall on FanDuel, obviously you got to pay a little bit more for Calvin, and obviously Max is one of the top ones there. But I think overall, both of these guys are good plays on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm not avoiding Max Holloway at all. I think the only thing that might make me take a slighter underweight approach to him is just the price tag of 8,900 to 7,300. I think it's a really close fight. I think that's a little too wide for my liking. But I'm getting behind more so Calvin Kattar at 7,300. I need a value play, 5 rounds. I know what he's capable of. I know what power he possesses. I can expect him to hurt Max Holloway. Not sure if he's going to finish Max Holloway, but I'm pretty sure that he can match him anywhere, if not excel in certain areas. So maybe it's my hometown bias, Jason, but I'm siding Calvin Kattar. In GPPs, I'm splitting my exposure for sure. It's like a 60-40 for me, but I think that you're probably going to need this fight.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a fight that you got to have. Of course, if you want to get a view of what the ownership projections are for this fight, you got to sign up for an Awesemo Plus weekly pass, right? You get that right now for $29.95. You just go to awesemo.com right there at the top hand side of the screen. Sign up for an Awesemo Plus membership. And we got a great promo going on right now for our NHL weekly pass. Get it for only $3 when you use that promo code Gretzky. You see it right there at the bottom of the screen. Also, it is in the YouTube chat. So be sure, sign up today. All the great content, all the tools and content that have made Alex Awesemo Baker the #1 DFS player in the world is tools that me and Pete use all the time. I'm always, you gotta pay attention to those ownership, because you know what? There might be someone. You might be able to find a little value there. You can see it there on the screen of where you can sign up there over at awesemo.com. Great tools and content. So I got to put my pro plays in tonight, so I'm going to be working on that after the show. I like to do those after I talk to Pete, because sometimes Pete has a way to change my mind on some things.
I appreciate it. I respect your opinion on a bunch of these fights. I'm excited for this co-main event. I don't know how many people are excited for this co-main event we're about to get into, but natural born killer Carlos Condit, one of my favorite fighters, and I cannot wait.
So I would tell you, I was watching all of the pre-fight scrums earlier today, and Matt Brown is basically, talking about how, he, obviously, just like every fighter, they're very confident heading into a fight. And so the reporters asked Carlos Condit about this, and Carlos Condit, you could tell he didn't like what they were saying to him. He goes, "I'm going to F him up."
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. I mean, you guys know by now, you've tuned into this show for a while. I'm a WEC guy. Carlos Condit is like a childhood hero of mine. I don't even know if childhood is the right term, but like since I was like 15, 16, I've been watching him. So I love Carlos Condit. I'm excited for this. I think that he matches up really well against Matt Brown. You have two veterans here. Carlos Condit, he's getting up there in age, but Matt Brown actually just turned 40 the other day. So, Matt Brown, they both had, struggles recently in their past 5 fights. But I do think that Carlos Condit's a bad matchup for Matt Brown, who, at this point in his career, can't really take a shot to the head, can't really take a shot to the body, gets submitted a ton. The one worry with Carlos Condit is if somebody implements a grappling heavy, approach, but I don't really foresee Matt Brown doing that.
When you look at the salaries for this one, I think the FanDuel salary for Carlos Condit sticks out to me at $16, $14 for Matt Brown over on DK, $8,700 for Carlos Condit, $7,500 for Matt Brown. You mentioned about Matt's last fight, the loss against Miguel Baeza, where it was a situation where speed was obviously the clear factor in that one. And, this is a fight that I don't think I feel comfortable. I can't see myself having, maybe I'll have 10% shares of Matt Brown. Probably, I'm definitely going to have more shares of Carlos Condit on FanDuel than I will on on DraftKings, but also in that Carlos Condit pre-fight scrum that earlier, it was either today or yesterday, based on time, time difference between here and Abu Dhabi. Carlos Condit did admit this is his last fight on his UFC deal.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that if Matt Brown loses, we will see Matt Brown retire. I just think that he kind of seems like he has one foot out the door a little bit. It's already. I don't like it when fighters are kind of talking about post-life stuff. And I get it, we're human beings, but it's kind of a distraction, to be honest. I want a guy who's laser focused and is, has like killer instinct still. I can actually give Matt Brown some props if I'm looking at my takedown city chart, which actually surprised me. Matt Brown in his UFC career has landed 25 takedowns, Jason. Now he has a ton of fights. So that's a 0.96 rate of a takedown per fight. But the one thing about Carlos Condit that is a gaping hole, in my opinion, is his takedown defense. So that can play into this fight if Matt Brown, for some reason, decides to be a wrestler. Carlos Condit's been taken down 55 times in his UFC career, which is absolutely insane. That's about 3 per fight. That's pretty crazy, Jason.
Yeah, and one of the things that, when you listen to Matt, I thought it was interesting that, he's talking about being a coach, wants to help out younger fighters, but these are both older fighters who, look, they're not going the hard training anymore. I just, I do like Carlos Condit in this one, but if Matt Brown gets it done, do you believe it's because of takedowns and potentially a submission?
Yeah, I really do not see Matt Brown knocking out Carlos Condit. You have 2 fighters with some of the best elbows in the game. Carlos Condit throws elbows in combination, so you kind of really don't. He blends them so well with his coach. Matt Brown has great elbows as well and really throws them with more power than anything. But I do think that Carlos Condit's a bad matchup for Matt Brown. If Matt Brown wins this fight, I think it's just by somehow getting Carlos Condit down repeatedly. But let's be clear here, Jason. Carlos Condit has a ton of submission victories. Like between the two of these guys, Condit has a 90% finish rate out of 31 victories, okay? And Matt Brown has a 91% finish rate out of 22 victories. I know you're a little hesitant to pull the trigger on this fight, Jason, but I might hammer it, man. I really might.
I don't know about hammering it. Okay, so I'm going to bring up my favorite stat of the week.
Okay,
you know what that is? Carlos Condit's looking to get back-to-back victories for the first time since 2012.
Yeah. Oh my
Bro,
gosh.
it's 2021.
Okay. Well, I don't know.
I left you speechless.
I don't know how to respond to that. It's pretty crazy. But I will say that Matt Brown really hasn't been much better. They've been inconsistent. If I told you right now to our audience who has the better UFC record in the UFC, obviously, Carlos Condit or Matt Brown, I think just instinctively we think Carlos Condit. It's not the case.
Honestly, I would, I think the thing you would point to is Carlos Condit was an interim welterweight champion. Matt Brown never got to that point. Right.
Yeah. Carlos Condit in the UFC, Jason, was 8-9. Matt Brown's 15-11. So it's just crazy because we think about how Carlos Condit was head kicking GSP and his win over Nick Diaz, and it's just crazy.
Yeah, no, it is. This is just one of those fights that I don't feel good either way because look, I think when you see the way Matt Brown fights, you don't really see it going 15 minutes, but I could very well see this one going 15 minutes. Let's move on. We do got a lot of fights to get to here. We got the return of Santiago Ponzinibbio taking on Li Jingliang. Ponzinibbio we have not seen since the end of 2018, and his price on DK definitely stuck out to me. 9,300 on this one. This is first fight since November 17, 2018. Had that win against Neil Magny. He's had a lot of things, a lot of health issues. There was a point that there was looking like he may never fight again because of those health issues. And Li Jingliang, he is coming off that decision loss against Neil Magny back in March, unable to fight. That fight was actually before COVID, before everything went shut down here in the United States. Obviously living in China, he could not fight. all of 2020. So he's in this spot. The $9,300 price tag on DraftKings, $23 on FanDuel. What's your thoughts about Santiago in this spot?
Well, I will say I absolutely love this fight. And, what a return for Santiago Ponzinibbio. This is not a tune-up fight by any means. I don't think that this is an easy fight, against Jingliang. I think Jingliang is dangerous in multiple facets of the game. Jingliang has power in his hands, can mix in takedowns to win rounds. He's very tough, has some pretty impressive wins on his resume if you go back and you look at it. Santiago Ponzinibbio, though, should be a step ahead in the striking if he's himself. Now, that's the X factor in this situation, right? Because we have Ponzinibbio being priced like he's himself, not coming off of a 2-year layoff, not coming off of an infection and other injuries. So, he's already priced up. I think that Jingliang is a nice value play for GPPs. However, from a technical aspect, I will say Ponzinibbio holds plenty of advantages in this fight. He's the faster of the two. He's the more clean, precise striker, puts together combinations like incredible. Like I really feel like he could go out there and make a statement and just show everybody like, you guys might have forgot who I am and I'm here to stay. But I can't ignore the X factors I talked about. Jingliang at $6,900 and $9, like GPP, I'm totally targeting him and adding him in as a long shot.
I don't think he's a bad cash play either.
Yeah, I mean,
either slate, either $6,900 DK or $9 on FanDuel. If he can somehow make this a 15-minute fight, rack up some points with his strikes, you're going to be able to get to those high price fighters you want to get to.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, it's a pay down spot and it allows you to pay up in other areas. And, that strategy of stars and scrubs, if you've been playing NBA DFS, we've been doing that the past like four days. It's pretty annoying, but it's effective. I will say that ring rust is real. And when you haven't been under the lights at the highest level, it's hard to come back in and compete against somebody who is, your equal. You know what I mean? It takes, like, by right, Ponzinibbio should be getting a tune-up fight. But his pride's kind of getting in the way of saying, I'm just as talented. I was just hurt. But, Jingliang hasn't been active because of COVID. You know what I mean? This is the world we're living in today. I will be targeting Ponzinibbio at 9,300. I think that he holds plenty of advantages. But at 6,900, I can't ignore Jingliang's a long shot.
I'm going to have to mark this tape of you saying that cage rust is real, because when we get your next fight booked, I'm going to ask that question.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Your short-term memory apparently has gone away. You don't remember what you said 2 minutes ago.
No.
Yeah. I mean, look, Santiago, you think about when he beat Neil Magny. This was a guy that was probably looking at, he was supposed to face, I believe it was Robbie Lawler at that time. I mean, he was putting himself in a win away from a title shot. So, I mean, I do think in the way the UFC is setting this up in a little bit of a way to, get him back in there. And he's already mentioned that he does want to have a quick turnaround in terms of, getting a win here, then trying to maybe get a fight here pretty soon. So we'll see what happens there. Next up, we got a middleweight matchup. Joaquin Buckley taking on Alessio Di Chirico. Joaquin Buckley, $9,400 on DK, $22 on FanDuel. On the other side, Di Chirico, $6,800, $8 on FanDuel. Listen to both of these guys. It seems like everyone just wants to ask Joaquin Buckley about James Krause and why that fight hasn't happened. James has had a knee injury. James has actually asked for the fight. UFC just hasn't granted it. And Di Chirico, he didn't really say much about Buckley today when he talked to the media. Talked a little bit about Kevin Holland, how he doesn't like Kevin Holland. But, I think the thing with Buckley, I mean, obviously he became a viral sensation last year, getting that spinning kick knockout. Then he's coming off a good win against Jordan Wright. I was going back and watching that Jordan Wright fight. I think the one thing that kind of stuck out to me is he did not go balls to the wall right from the start. It seemed like he was very patient, waiting for things to happen. And I do wonder with Chirico in this fight, how much of his game plan might be, let me try to wear down Buckley. Let me try to get this fight to the third round to see if that gas tank is there.
Yeah, and let me just say, the hype is real, folks. Joaquin Buckley can fight, and Joaquin Buckley's here to stay, and the UFC recognizes his talent. You have a great rebound from a Kevin Holland loss. He took the fight on short notice, stepped up, suffered the defeat, and bounced back in probably the best way you can with 2 viral knockouts. I think that the UFC is really teeing up Joaquin Buckley for another win here. I think that they're trying to match him, correctly and slowly build him. And whether it's the UFC trying to do that or it's Joaquin Buckley's management, I think they're taking the slow approach and being more methodical in his fights, making adjustments like you spoke of is very important, because once you start to break into that top 15 in the UFC, you're making mistakes, people are capitalizing, you're losing it and getting bounced out of the rankings. So you need to make sure that you're not being reckless, that you're being methodical, you're fighting for 15 minutes and not just 1 minute. I do think that, Joaquin Buckley has some, significant advantages in this fight, has the volume edge. For being a big guy, he has pretty surprising cardio, doesn't get fatigued too often, which I find that quite fascinating. On the regional scene, I fought on the same card that Joaquin Buckley fought for Bellator. I will say that Buckley wasn't this striker that he has turned into now. Joaquin Buckley was taking people down and just out-muscling people. So it's kind of neat to see him transform into the fighter that neither one of us really expected. But I can't ignore it, man. I mean, this breakout is real. And I think that he's going to get another victory here. I think the Chirico is dangerous, but he's not a specialist. He's kind of just okay in every department. 6,800, if you're really looking and think that he can derail the hype train, he's a tough fight. It's not an easy fight by any means, but I just think that Buckley's going to be a step ahead from bell to bell.
When he was in Bellator that you mentioned about, he was fighting at 170, and he was a fight that was going all 15 minutes, so this, and this as, fighters evolve, and now he's at 185 and he's put on some great, great performances here. Chirico, look, he's got to win. He's lost 3 in a row. But to me, I think in terms of your DFS roster, to me, it's just a matter of how much do you want to pay. Are you willing to pay up? Because, this isn't, yes, you think of the knockouts, but both of his knockouts in the UFC have come in the second round. So I think the thing has got to be is, what is at 9,400 on DK, how many points has he got to score for you to say that was a good play for me?
Yeah, I think it's got to be over 100. Obviously, I really do. I think that there are easier matchups to target on this fight card. I think that Buckley gets a win. I just don't know if it's like an optimal win. So,
yeah, no, I'm with you there. Then their opening fight of the main card. By the way, main card 3 p.m. Eastern time on ABC. Live before lock on Saturday will be at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be doing the back-to-back shows. I'll be doing the NBA strategy show, and then I'll be hopping over to do the MMA show with Pete to get you ready for Saturday's UFC card. But an interesting matchup to kick off the main card of Punahele Soriano taking on Dusko. And it was interesting listening to Dusko talk about this, where he even said, he was surprised that they would put 2 undefeated fighters against each other. But I thought it was very interesting that he said, our strengths and weaknesses or question marks, they kind of match up against each other.
Yeah, I will say that it's quite odd that the UFC is pairing 2 prospects, in my opinion, up against one another. I don't really like that because you might shatter one's confidence. You might derail one's career. Like, they can meet up, further along the road. Like, I will say Soriano's 1-0, Todorovic is 1-0 in the UFC. Like, what are we doing here? But regardless, they're matched up against one another. I will say Todorovic, he's one of the most well-rounded young fighters in the game. I can honestly say that. He has pretty impressive striking combinations, puts together good combinations, mixes in a suffocating ground game, great wrestling, strong jiu-jitsu, good ground and pound. Doesn't seem weak in too many areas other than his striking defense. I think that's what Punahele Soriano needs to take advantage of, is these small lapses where, Todorovic is kind of, being lackadaisical on the feet and catch him with a big shot. Soriano has some impressive power as well and does have some submission wins. But I just feel like Todorovic is a nice play here, Jason. Todorovic can get cracked and get hurt and get knocked out by Soriano. So this is definitely a fight I will target both sides on, but I am favoring Todorovic at 8,500 because he has more ways to win here. I think that he's the stronger of the two, can take down Soriano if things get sticky. So, it's Todorovic for me. I'm excited to see this fight.
Cardio is my concern with Soriano, is if this fight does make it to, late second, early third, of what will that look like? But look, this guy's a power puncher, so that is part of it. But yeah, I agree with you. With Dusko is kind of the guy that I prefer in this matchup. Of course, if you ever want to talk the fight game with myself and Pete, and you're a member at Awesemo.com, that gets you access to our premium Slack channel. Pete's been in there all day, so you ever got a question there, do try to get in there on Saturday mornings of fight day, Saturday afternoons, just depending on when we do a show, because me and Pete are going to be all over Awesemo the next couple of days, as, of course, we got the fights on Saturday, then we got the fights next Wednesday morning time. By the way, I don't know if Pete's realized this, we got a Live Before Lock next Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, Pete, I'm up that early, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, we've got 3 UFC fight cards over the next week. So, looking forward to that. So, we'll be all in our premium Slack channel. That is one of the great benefits of being an Awesemo Plus member, is the fact that you get access to our premium Slack account. Whether it's not just MMA, but, maybe you want to hop in there and, Josh is always in there, especially on the NBA channel, talk about NBA. So that is a great benefit we have over there at Awesemo.com. Of course, sign up today for an Awesemo account, Awesemo.com/join, or also go to Awesemo.com/promos to see all the active promos there. You see it right there on the screen. Get an NHL Weekly Pass for $3 right now using promo code Gretzky. Or if you want to get access to all of the sports, $29.95. So you got to check that out over there at Awesemo.com. When me and Pete were talking earlier this week, actually I think it was yesterday, and Pete goes, there's 3 fights that I think the salaries are interesting on. We talked about one of them with Ponzinibbio. The other one, and it's Phil Hawes at 8,800 on DK.
Yeah, Phil Hawes, I love Phil Hawes. So I'm going to be backing him in this fight, but this fight is a lot closer, and I expected the salaries to be a lot more competitive than what they're appearing. 8,800 for Phil Hawes against Nasruddin Imavov at 7,400. It's pretty wide, and I think it's a closer fight than that because we have seen Phil Hawes struggle on his way up to the UFC. He's kind of fell short in several ways. He's been caught by a big shot and submitted in the past. He's also been knocked out pretty brutally. So he's had to rebound from those. So I'm happy he's in the UFC. This is another head scratcher where I'm sitting here saying, you have 2 talented fighters that have promising careers. Why are we matching them up so early? Because you're going to lose one of them, and it could potentially negatively affect them for the rest of their career. Regardless, Phil Hawes has a very, very decorated wrestling pedigree, incredible wrestler, but you're probably known, he's known for impressive striking, good knockout ability, just puts pressure on you. Imavov can strike pretty well, has good hands, good counter striker, but he's good at grappling as well and hunting for submissions, something that Phil Hawes has struggled with, leaving that neck out there. So it's a close fight, and I think that the salary should be a lot closer. In my opinion, I feel like the Phil Hawes of now and the Phil Hawes of new has made adjustments to his game. He's part of a great, great team that I really think is great over at Sanford MMA. So I'm interested to see your take on this fight.
Yeah, this is one of those ones, as I'm looking at underdogs, I do kind of like the underdog here a little bit. I think that, look, I will definitely have shares of Phil Hawes, but Imavov is a guy that I think you do have to look at when you're looking at trying to find some value plays throughout this card. At 7,400 on DK, $14 on FanDuel. I think there is some value there, but look, at the end of the day, you are taking underdog in that spot. So, Phil Hawes, he had that quick knockout in his UFC debut, has to come back, And of course, on the other side, Imavov got that win against Jordan Williams. So we'll see what happens there. Then we got a female matchup: Wu Yanan taking on Jocelyn Edwards, 8,400 for Yanan, 7,800 for her opponent, 19 and 11 on FanDuel. When I was looking at Edwards, and of course this is her UFC debut, the thing that did stick out to me is strength of schedule on the regional scene. Her best opponent by far is Sarah Alpar, which she lost a decision in LFA. But when you look at everyone else on that, there was not a notable opponent that she had fought on the regional scene.
Yeah, I think that strength of schedule will slightly favor Wu Yanan. But if you look at Yanan's strength of schedule as well, her competition, it's nothing really impressive at all. Obviously, Jocelyn Edwards is making her UFC debut. So that's a big deal. And if people are trying to downplay that, let me tell you, it's a big deal when you get a call from a big promotion and you're stepping up, especially on a card like this on Fight Island. I mean, are you kidding me? But from what I have seen from Jocelyn Edwards, limited tape, she's tough to really study, but I did find plenty of stuff. It seems really old, the fight footage that I found. I did find her most recent fight, and she looked like she has really transformed into a pretty well-rounded fighter. Early indications were that she was training in judo, so she likes to throw her opponent with a lot of head and arm throws, which is a very common technique in women's MMA. You'll see that in those divisions more, than any other divisions. Jocelyn Edwards really started to implement some nice jiu-jitsu as well. She attacks a lot, and I like a fighter that's hunting the finish, trying to get it over quickly. On the feet, overwhelming pressure, long strikes, good body kicks, good knees. I think that Wu Yanan is a good striker, but I think that she could honestly be in a tough fight here against a newcomer in Jocelyn Edwards. You know me, Jason, I usually take a wait and see approach to fighters making their UFC debut, but 7,800 for Jocelyn Edwards, from what I'm seeing on tape, she should be the longer of the two. She should have the pressure and the aggressive style that could cause Yanan some problems. I'm somewhat interested in Edwards at 7,800.
Let me throw out some betting prop bets for you, of course. So you can go over to Awesemo.com, Odd Shopper, to check out the betting lines for this one. Fight goes to decision, minus 240. Edwards wins by TKO KO, plus 525. Yanan wins by TKO KO, plus 905. Edwards wins by submission, plus 850. Yanan wins by submission, plus 775. Pete, what's that tell you about what the odds makers think?
Oh, it's going to be a long night. I will say that if we were talking about those prop bets and you're trying to look back at their careers, Yanan has been knocked out in the past and Edwards has been submitted in the past. So that's something to note.
Yeah, it's we always talk about it. The odds are a female fight statistically does it's around 60% a chance that it's going to go to a decision. So something to pay attention to when you're developing your lineups, so whether it's on DraftKings or on FanDuel. Then we got a heavyweight matchup: Carlos Felipe taking on Justin Tafa. This is, I guess, my question about Justin Tafa. If he can't get the knockout in the first round, how does this fight look?
Yeah, I think it's ugly. I think it's ugly for Justin Tafa if he can't get it done early because from what I've seen, and it's limited footage because a lot of his fights end early, he will be behind Carlos Felipe in the cardio and the pace department. I think that Carlos Felipe is one of these guys that is pretty impressive for the division. And, I called that last fight and I liked him in that spot and he came through. And I really think that for the heavyweight division, he doesn't discriminate where he's going to punch you. And I think that's pretty impressive. Like, he will attack the body and a lot of people are just headhunt. When you have a fighter that's so knowledgeable to go to the body, as simple as it sounds, it makes striking and everything so much easier. I think Carlos Felipe's in for a nice fight here. Justin Tafa is going to bring it, but he's going to be reckless. The more measured and the more polished of the two is definitely Carlos Felipe. Justin Tafa is a GPP round one type of guy that can give you that Francis Ngannou bonus, Jason. But I'm not chasing it. I have to side with the guy who has better cardio and better defensive tendencies. I like Carlos Felipe a decent bit, despite the $8,600 price tag.
Yeah, it's Carlos Felipe. He's got a big body. But this is one of those fights I think that you do have to be looking at. A little expensive for Felipe on FanDuel, I think, at $20, but that's where I think you have to use the ownership and see where ownership kind of goes with this fight. And obviously, if Justin Tafa wins, it's going to be by knockout. He's a kickboxer. This is what he does. So I think that's something you got to pay attention to. Of course, I appreciate everyone that's here on a Thursday night. Watch us live on the Awesemo YouTube channel. Of course, be sure to smash that thumbs up button right here on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell. We're trying to get to over 50,000 subscribers. We're getting there. So if you're not subscribed to Awesemo, be sure to smash that button. Of course, we'll have you shows all day long tomorrow. The first show starting at 9 a.m. with the betting show. And, of course, getting you ready for all the NBA, NHL, and, of course, the NFL playoffs are back on Saturday. It'll be a long night on Sunday night for me since the Bucks don't play till 6:40. So I think I'll probably get home about 1 a.m. on Sunday night.
Yeah, I'm rooting for you guys. I hope.
Hopefully celebrating a victory. Hopefully,
yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. So, but let's get back to the fights here. We got David Zawada taking on Razam Emeev. Emeev 9,200. This is a fight that as I was pulling up some stats on this one, the one thing that does kind of concern you about Emeev, yes, he is 4-1 in the UFC, but all those fights have gone to a decision.
Yeah, he's not a DFS friendly type of fighter. So Hamazan Emeev here at 9,200. It's pretty interesting that he's priced up so much and that they're really not giving a lot of respect to David Zawada here. I think that Hamazan Emeev is a very high-level fighter. Good striking, very basic striking. So, I mean, it's super basic, but it works for him. Lackadaisical type of approach, doesn't really throw high volume. So if a guy or a fighter implements a pressure style against him, you could be behind on the scorecards. But Emeev does have some really good wrestling to rely on, and that's how he really solidifies rounds, Jason. David Zawada, though, is very, very dangerous, and I don't think too many people are really giving him a shot in this fight. I kind of like Zawada, truthfully. I really do. Now, I understand that Zawada has a big, big hole in the wrestling department. That is obvious. But off of his back, he does have some impressive submissions. He will constantly hunt submissions. He has a very, very good triangle, has some pretty good wins, and is no stranger to being the underdog. On the feet, though, is where I think it can get interesting for him. I think that if he is just able to outwork Emeev, defend some takedowns, I think he can honestly hurt Rock, potentially finish Emeev. Now, I know this is extremely bold because Emeev's a good fighter. He's a high-level fighter. But if you look at David Zawada, his strength of schedule is pretty good. They kind of match up pretty well. So I think this fight is a lot closer than the DraftKings salary say, a lot closer than the odds say. Emeev should win the fight, but I'm taking David Zawada as a value play on some of my lineups. I like him quite a bit.
All right, so let's bring up the new DraftKings scoring system.
Yeah.
So Emeev in his last fight, he only had 29 significant strikes landed, 67 total strikes, 4 of 12 takedowns. So that could be on the FanDuel side of the thing. Maybe if you want to go with Zawada for takedown defenses, but in that fight against Stolze, he had 6 minutes and 50 seconds of control time.
Yeah, it's a great.
And that is now a new scoring system on DraftKings where you get 0.03 points per second of control time.
I love the point, Jason. That's why we're doing this show together. It's a great point. I do think that despite Emeev's, low volume and kind of lazy type of style, this new scoring system could benefit some blanket type of fighters that really just take you down and just hold you. I will say that David Zawada will be able to work back up to his feet a little bit better than Imavov's previous opponent. And if he's not working up to his feet, he's hunting for submissions off of his back. So it's a good point. Obviously, we'll have to see how this new scoring affects all of these fights.
One of the things in chat I'll just kind of mention here, Matt saying the UFC charter flight set to leave Vegas tomorrow. Fight on just got delayed 24 hours. No shot any Saturday fighters are affected by that fight. No, all the fighters are already in. The fighters that are on that charter flight are the ones that are fighting next Saturday.
Yeah,
so all the fighters that are fighting on Saturday and Wednesday, they are already in Abu Dhabi. Actually, the fighters who are fighting on Saturday and Wednesday, will not leave Abu Dhabi till after the Wednesday card. So all those fighters will all be on the same flight back.
Nice. That's interesting. Saving money.
Look, so, this is what you come here for. Sometimes you get useless information. But yeah, man, it's a charter flight. Charter flights are really nice. I'm just gonna tell you that. As someone who's been on a lot of charter flights in his life. Next up, we got Sarah Moras taking on Vanessa Mello. $9,100 for Moras, $7,100 for Mello, $20 for Sarah on FanDuel, $8 for Mello. I have no interest in this one. So you've got one fighter who is 6-6. The other fighter is 10-8. Mello's 0-3 in the UFC. All of her losses via decision. And Sarah Moras 3-5 in the UFC. She's coming off a decision loss against Sachara Eubanks. I don't know how, man. I guess you can potentially play the ownership game here with Sarah Moras, but I'm not interested.
Yeah, let me say that it's not the best fight, but I will be targeting it. I'll be targeting all the fights, obviously, because I want to, try to just really see how this new scoring affects everything. I think that this could be an interesting spot. Now, the price tag on Moras at 9,100, they're out of their mind. That's a little too high for her style. She doesn't throw a lot on the feet, but she has pretty good takedowns. And I think that's her path to victory in this fight against Vanessa Mello, because if she stands up with Vanessa Mello, she's probably going to be behind on the scorecard. She'll be behind on the volume of strikes. So she needs to chain together some takedowns and really, lace that leg and work towards a takedown. And we have seen Vanessa Mello struggle defending takedowns. She's been taken down a decent amount. And especially if you watch fight film on her, I have a feeling that Vanessa Mello pulls this one out, man. I really do. I think that she's going to as long as she can keep it on the feet, like she's probably going to get taken down, but if she can get back to her feet or prevent just one takedown, make Sarah Moras a little bit fatigued, start to beat her up on the feet. I don't think Moras can really hang on the feet. I think that Mello's nothing special, but will have the volume edge. The total strikes will probably benefit us in this bout because I don't know how many is going to be significant, but it's an interesting spot. 7,100. I'm okay with rostering it in a few lineups. 9,100. She can work a takedown, possibly work towards a submission, but man, that's just a hefty price tag. I'd rather spend it elsewhere.
No, yeah, it's a very hefty price tag that you got to pay. Of course, this is the Mma Dfs strategy show right here at Awesemo.com. Now, if you ever cannot watch our shows live on YouTube, you want to get it on the go, you got to sign up for the podcast. I'm part of the Awesemo Podcast Network. Every show we have is on the Awesemo Podcast Network. You can get all in one feed, all the shows we have, or if you just want the MMA show, we've got the Awesemo MMA podcast there. So check that out. The strategy show is a part of it. And be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review for your chance to win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Just go to awesemo.com/podcast. That 5-star rating review, that does help me and Pete out a lot and the entire team here at awesemo.com. Now, our first fight of the night is going to be Austin Lingo and Jacob Kilburn. Okay, I'm just going to say this. Tell me how Jacob Kilburn gets it done.
I'm surprisingly, interested in this fight, and I'm kind of excited for this fight. And I will say that, both men are a lot better than what they've shown in their debuts. I think that, Lingo had a tough task, and so did Kilburn. And Kilburn really hasn't shown the UFC what he could do, even if you go back to the Contender Series. But, Austin Lingo is a big power puncher, has good hands, really throws an overhand, kind of like Chuck Liddell. Like, it's really good. Jacob Kilburn, though, if you go back and you look at his regional tape, he has some impressive knockout power and knockout ability. Good karate background, mixes in some kicks. Surprising boxing. So I think you need this fight, Jason. I think like avoiding this fight, you could be on the outside looking in because I don't see this one going the distance. I think Austin Lingo either catches Kilburn on the chin with an overhand and it's over early, giving you that Francis Ngannou bonus, or Kilburn really wears down Lingo with a ton of kicks. Because, when you're facing a boxer and you start kicking them, it really throws a lot of people off. Now, when it comes to jiu-jitsu and wrestling, Lingo will have the edge in that department, but it is very, very slight. Two good camps here, Fortis MMA, American Top Team. I'm interested to see how it goes. I think both men will be prepared. I think it'll be a good bout. I'm hammering this fight, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, look, Austin Lingo was a guy that everyone was so high of, comes into UFC and, loses Yusuf Salal. Yusuf Salal used the foot movement to work around. I mean, that's obviously is a concern, but I just think this is a good matchup for Austin Lingo. I do like him in this spot. But yeah, you got to pay $9,000 for him on DK, so it is a little pricey there. Of course, if you do have any questions, start lining those up right now, whether it's in our premium Slack channel or in YouTube. But before we get to those, let's get into our fight picks. Let's go bottom to the top.
Right.
Give me Austin Lingo.
Lingo.
This is a fight that I don't know who to pick, so I guess I'm going to go Sarah Morris.
Okay, I'm going to go Mello.
Emeev and Zawada.
Give me Zawada for the upset.
Oh, I'm going to go Emeev. Felipe and Tafa.
Felipe.
I'm with you on that one. Yanan and Edwards.
Edwards for me.
I like Yanan there.
Okay.
Imavov and Hawes.
Hawes for me.
Imavov. I'm going to go a little upset there.
He's a good value. I like it.
Dusko and Soriano.
Dusko.
I agree with you there. Buckley. I'm imagine you go Buckley as well.
Yeah.
Ponzinibbio versus Jingliang.
Ponzinibbio.
Ponzinibbio. By the way, let me just say these are straight up fight picks, not DFS related.
Correct.
Let me just say that. Carlos Condit, Matt Brown.
Condit. Times a million.
I'm gonna go Condit as well. Main event: Max Holloway, Calvin Kattar.
I'm going biased opinion, Calvin Kattar.
That's what I thought you were going against the New England Cartel. Like, no. You're not gonna be able to show your face in the Northeast.
No. I'm going Calvin Kattar.
I will tell you this. I'm probably going more with my heart here. But give me Calvin Kattar. I've known Calvin for a while. Some people may not know Calvin Kattar is actually a fight promoter. Owns a Combat Zone up in the Northeast. So something to note there. So, but yeah, it's going to be a really good fight. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing kind of how that one does play out. Dexter says, how do you feel about the weed news for USADA, Pete? Big time. Here's what I'll say. While it's not a violation with USADA and the UFC, it's going to come down to a state athletic commission whether they're going to change their policy as well on that one.
So, yep. So another battle.
Hey, that's what it is. Miles says, Pete, how crucial is your Takedown City article going to be for FanDuel players?
I think it's good if you can see how many takedowns a fighter is attempting. And then if you combine that with some film study or you check out, their opponent's takedown defensive rating. I mean, that's what you want on FanDuel is defending takedowns. You get the bonus points. So if you have a guy, say you're fighting Khabib and you have, I don't know, let's say George St. Pierre, who has amazing takedown defense, in that situation, maybe you want to target George St. Pierre.
Woody over in Slack says, did not realize Wednesday fights were during the day, not a happy camper. Yeah, early day. 9 a.m. is lock time on Wednesday. Also says, as of now, this is for you, Pete. He goes, are there any fighters that we are Xing off?
Well, I will say for me,
I'll say that
one, it'd be Matt Brown, truthfully.
In terms of GPP, I do not like the female fights in terms of GPP.
Yeah.
Cash is a little bit of a different story.
Total strikes could help, though, in this situation, though, because we are so accustomed to significant strikes, which is somewhat biased with fight metrics. So, if a fight stays on the feet, say the Moras and Mello or Edwards and Yanan, could be looking at a high total phone booth type of fight.
Yeah. Someone says, is Connor fighting? Connor is fighting next Saturday.
Next Saturday.
Yeah. Apparently it's trending pretty well there. Miles, appreciate the comment. Yeah, we are going to start incorporating more of, when we have, I talk to fighters and coaches, we are going to incorporate that as a show does go on. Garrett says, Pete, I've been waiting 3 weeks to hear your lock of the night.
You guys know I don't say lock of the night, but I will say a fighter I really, really, really like just to win the fight is Carlos Condit.
Oh, man.
You think Matt Brown's going to beat Carlos Condit?
I just don't feel comfortable with that fight. Okay, what have you seen out of Carlos Condit the last 9 years to give you confidence?
I've seen a lot of in the training room, truthfully. So I know what Condit's capable of, and I know what he does to guys in the training room. Matt Brown's going bye-bye.
Look, I think Carlos Condit's the right way to go. I just don't feel comfortable. Like, if you told me I had to say that L word,
let me hear it.
God, it's two. I've got two fighters.
Let me hear them both.
That are in consideration. Austin Lingo and Joaquin Buckley.
Okay, I can agree with you on the Joaquin Buckley. I think that the Lingo Kilburn fight, Kilburn, he's training the American top team, and he has been, and he has some sneaky pop.
People asking about when Pete's next fight is going to be, I've heard he's got his people working on it.
I heard that as well. Looking like a March or April, something like that.
Yeah, it's it'll be right here before you know it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have said, that we will announce it here on the show when Pete's return to action is going to be.
Yeah, trust me. I wanted to return 6-8 months ago, but COVID had other plans.
Yeah, especially there in the Northeast, you really can't, with what's going on there. It's tough, It is, it's just very tough. Just want.
You got Tanner mentioning that we don't have the 7,900 and 8,300 salaries on DK, and it is a killer lineup construction. I mean, good point, my man.
We had some fights. Remember, I want to say it was the Tom Breeze fight was 8,200, 8,000 fight. That fight is now on the Wednesday card, and then there was another one that got moved as well.
Yes. Yeah, so, I mean, this is an interesting dynamic with the pricing. So, the mid-range is kind of absent if you look at it. I mean, what do we have? We have 8,600 Felipe, 8,400 Yanan, 8,500 Todorovic. Everything else after that is 8,600 and up. Like, that's pretty crazy.
Miles says, out of all the fighters, who wrestles the most?
It's a great question. You haven't seen it in the UFC, but I think Todorovic goes to the wrestling well pretty often. Emeev is probably first, maybe second.
Yeah. I mean, look, and one of Sir Physical says, well, we've seen from Matt Brown recently. There's been spurts in fights where he's looked good, but then it kind of crumbles on him. I mean, outside of the Diego Sanchez fight, which we all kind of saw that one coming. I mean, look, he's an aging fighter. There's no doubt about it. And it's like you mentioned earlier in the show, if Matt Brown doesn't get the win on Saturday, I think the likelihood is this is probably his last fight. And he kind of alluded to, he understands that, the time is coming to an end.
I also think it's kind of like a perfect fight to leave out on, right? If you're not losing to a hot prospect and a new kid on the block and kind of passing the torch, you're losing or fighting a guy that you kind of grew in the sport with or alongside with, and Carlos Condit, another notable name, a veteran. So, I think it's the perfect way to go out, whether you win or lose.
Let's finish show here on this question. This comes from Britt in our premium Slack channel. It says, with more entries in the DraftKings Big GPP than possible lineups, assuming you don't stack, what is a strategy for getting unique this slate?
Well, that will have to depend on the scoring. Getting unique this slate. I'll tell you what, Buckley's probably going to roster some insane ownership because of what he has done, with his viral knockouts. You have to think of the household names of Holloway, Condit. They're going to be pretty heavily owned, and maybe a stack is the way to go with this new scoring system. I don't know yet. We'll have to see.
My suggestion would be, and Britt, since you're a premium member, look at the ownerships and look at everyone under 25%. I think that's where you got to start.
Yeah, it's a great thing because
there are some fighters under 20% that I think have got a chance to potentially be in the optimal lineup.
Great point, Jason.
Yeah. So, but of course, we'll be back on Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for Live Before Lock. We'll get you ready for UFC Fight Island number 7, aka UFC on ABC number 1. Of course, main card on ABC on Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, you ever have any questions for the show, you know how to do that. You can go on our premium Slack channel, or you can hit Pete and myself up on Twitter. So that is going to do it for this edition of the MMA Strategy Show, and we will see you on Saturday for Live Before Lock.